So, greetings, friends, and welcome to my weekly talk, my Wednesday podcast. Today's talk is on the Saddhamma Sutta, a sutta on false dhammas. This is a discourse given by the Buddha, so it's obvious even during his time that competing and contradictory teachings were arising and causing confusion even during his time. This is a similar theme to a more famous sutta, the discourse to the Kalamas, where the entire town questioned the Buddha as to how to find and practice a true Dhamma practice. And so the Buddha told the Kalamas that the only way that you can do it is by direct experience. And there's talks on the Kalama Sutta and articles too. I won't get into that one. Let me focus on the Saddhamma Sutta. The Saddhamma Sutta answers a question about the need for additional rules of behavior within the Sangha as the Buddha's Sangha developed. Even during the Buddha's time, there were adaptations, accommodations, and embellishments made to the Dhamma that led to unskillful behavior. The intense desire to alter the Dhamma to fit confused views, that those views, it's a main focus of the Dhamma to recognize and abandon confused or ignorant views, but those views were rooted in ignorance of Four Noble Truths. And in a very direct way, that continues to be the problem today, of ignorance of Four Noble Truths. That's what the Buddha taught, that the dependent origination is what he awakened to, his realization that it was ignorance of Four Noble Truths, four truths that prevail throughout time. They're applicable in every situation. And that continued ignorance of that can only continue confusion, delusion, and suffering. So in the 2,600 years since the Buddha passed, that problem has persisted. It comes up often in my classes that if the Buddha were alive today, wouldn't he be teaching something different, because the conditions are so much different? But that the conditions of that cause all manner of suffering are exactly the same as they were in 2,600 years ago. It appears that the outward conditions may have changed, but it really hasn't. There was just as much competition between people, just as much arrogance, just as much violence as there was. There wasn't an immediate understanding of the global condition, but the Buddha's environment was very similar to this environment today, and the solution that he came up with. So let me continue with this article. What is developed is at best ineffective in developing the stated purpose of the Buddha's teaching, which is, I teach the origination of dukkha or suffering and the cessation of dukkha, nothing more. And he said that repeatedly throughout his teaching career, primarily to keep people's focus on what's occurring right now, and not get caught up in the ever-changing events of the day, but to remind everyone of the underlying cause of the upset in their own minds. What is most interesting to note today is how far-reaching is the belief that the Buddhist teaching should be accommodated to fit ever-changing views. And often the justification for these accommodations is another misapplied teaching. People claiming that the Buddha said, therefore, monks, well, the Buddha said, therefore, monks, if you know the purpose of what I have said, you should keep it in mind accordingly. But if you do not know the purpose of what I have said, you should question me about it, or else ask the monks who are wise, the ones that have developed understanding. And this is one of those misquoted, I should put it this way, quotes that are attributed to the Buddha that he never said. And it's usually presented this way: well, didn't the Buddha say that we should question everything, with the implication being that whatever I don't like, whatever I question, I can then adapt and change or dismiss to fit my view. And of course, that the question is rooted in wrong view, and the whole entire purpose of the Buddhist teaching is to recognize wrong views and abandon those views that are rooted in ignorance. And that is why the Eightfold Path is there. So the Buddha, when he said that, and this is also part of the Saddhamma Sutta, but many, many times throughout his teaching career, he said, question me, don't question the Dhamma. Why would the Buddha teach something for 45 years and then say, well, if you don't like it, if you question the veracity of it or the usefulness of it, just let it go and substitute something else and you can still call it the Dhamma. He certainly didn't say that. He said to question him directly on anything that you might be confused about or doubtful about. And of course, we can't question the Buddha directly anymore, but we can question what has been preserved of his teachings, and that is the Sutta Pitakas and the Pali Canon. So let me continue with that. This one phrase, repeated often by the Buddha, has been reinterpreted to imply that the Buddha taught to question everything, including the clear and direct Four Noble Truths. Rather than question the Buddha, I'm sorry, I lost the page. Rather than question the Buddha directly in his time, or to compare the adapted teaching for fidelity to the Buddha's direct teaching, as preserved in the Pali Canon, wholesale changes have been made, resulting in a modern Buddhism that is, as the Buddha states here, a counterfeit of the true Dhamma that has arisen in the world. And there's a recent article that I published called Modern Buddhism, A Thicket of Views, that goes into what has occurred because of this. So this is not to say that the varied modern adaptations of Buddhism are not legitimate religions, only that what has developed is not what the Buddha taught and is as different as gold is from silver, both valuable in application but very different in substance. And that's what the Buddha uses that metaphor here. So the Saddhamma Sutta. The Buddha was in Savatthi, in Jita's grove, Anathapindika's monastery. A senior monk, Mahakassapa, went to the Buddha with a question. Why is it that there are more training rules now than before, yet fewer Sangha members developing complete understanding? Kassapa, this is the direct result of what occurs when beings are degenerating and the true Dhamma begins to disappear. So this was a problem even during the Buddha's time. While he was teaching, there were people that were so stuck in their ignorant views and needed to adapt or dismiss what the Buddha was teaching, that new rules needed to be added, and the local Sangha was diminishing in numbers. And not to drag this out too long, I don't like to keep these Wednesday talks too long, but there was many accounts in the Pali Canon, in the suttas, of people coming into the Buddha's life, learning a little bit of his Dhamma, excuse me, and then leaving the Sangha and using some of what the Buddha taught to generate and develop their own following in contradiction of what the Buddha was teaching and in direct competition. The Buddha continues, just as there is no diminishing or disappearance of gold when there is no counterfeit gold, when counterfeit Dhamma is present, it diminishes the value of the true Dhamma and can completely obscure the true Dhamma. In the same way, when there is no counterfeit Dhamma in the world, there will be no diminishing or disappearance of my teachings. It is not the nature of the world to cause the true Dhamma to disappear. It is foolish people who arise within the Sangha that cause the true Dhamma to disappear. The true Dhamma disappears gradually from within, like a boat slowly sinking. And that is so true. In modern Buddhism, all the different competing and contradictory schools and religions and lineages, all claiming authenticity back to the Buddha, they can't possibly all be, just a common sense would say that they can't possibly all be correct, because they are so contradictory to each other and almost entirely contradictory to what the Buddha taught. And again, I'm not putting them down. This is a careful inquiry of looking at these will show that. So the Buddha continues, there are 5 unskillful qualities that confuse people and lead to the disappearance of the true Dhamma. 1, those that live with disrespect for true teachers. And again, this was even during the Buddha's time. Disrespect would mean listening to what a true teacher such as the Buddha or one of the awakened monks or nuns taught, And the most direct way to disrespect that teacher is not simply by questioning that. That's important to question anything that you might be confused or doubtful about, but to disrespect it as diminishing the knowledge of that teacher. The next one is those that have disrespect for the Dhamma, those that live with disrespect for the Sangha, those that live with disrespect for the Eightfold Path, and those that live with disrespect for deepening concentration. The Buddha is teaching in such a direct and clear way that he taught an Eightfold Path. It's the only path that he taught, that if you want to develop the Dhamma, you have to engage with it. And he taught meditation for deepening concentration. These are the Buddha continues, these are the 5 unskillful qualities that confuse people and lead to the disappearance of the true Dhamma. My friends, there are 5 skillful qualities that develop stability and clear insight that will preserve the true Dhamma. Those that live with respect for true teachers, those that live with respect for the Dhamma, those that live with respect for the Sangha, those that live with respect for the Eightfold Path, and those that live with respect for deepening concentration. These are the 5 skillful qualities that develop stability and clear insight that will preserve the true Dhamma. Upon hearing the Buddha's words, those assembled were delighted. Excuse me. That's the end of that sutta. So I know that those of you that follow my talks, maybe listen to the classes that I stream at my meditation center and read my articles and perhaps read my books, you know that I do talk about the differences between what the Buddha taught and what has developed in the 2,600 years since his passing. And I do that not to put anybody or any lineage or any school down, but I think it is so important to present what has been preserved in the Sutta Pitakas and the Pali Canon, because those are the only way that we can know what the Buddha taught is through his direct teachings. And those teachings are still available to us today. And then to use a sutta like this that the Buddha taught to show that even during the Buddha's time, there was such a strong desire to alter his teachings to fit confused views, which is exactly why he taught an Eightfold Path, to recognize and abandon those confused views for the sole purpose of developing awakening, for developing a calm and peaceful mind. I see so many people struggling today, and this was part of my experience for the first 10 or 15 years of my so-called Buddhist practice, of just getting more and more confused about what's the point, where are we going, what is a true teaching, why are these things that to me didn't seem to make sense, like well, I don't want to get into it because then it just sounds like I'm trying to put down something, and I'm really not. But what I see today is just as prevalent and probably more prevalent than was during the Buddha's time. And the really sad thing about that is that the Buddha's teachings are so basically simple, very direct, and they bring nearly immediate results. And he taught a Dhamma so that in this lifetime, any human being that wholeheartedly engaged with his Dhamma could develop what the Buddha described as an awakened mind, as meaning unbound or free from clinging to all ignorant views, and develop a mind of lasting peace and happiness, a mind of lasting equanimity in this lifetime. And many, many, many of the people that learned from the Buddha became awakened. It's astonishing when you read the canon, how many people were able to develop the Dhamma because they were well focused. They didn't introduce, or at least they recognized when they were getting into other teachings, and they were able to, within the framework of the Eightfold Path, recognize that and abandon it and keep their Dhamma practice simple, and they awakened. It's really surprising today when you look at some of the examples in the article that I recently put up, Modern Buddhism, A Thicket of Views, gets into this a little bit more than I will right now. But how much confusion has arisen by people that are engaged in so-called Buddhist practice and end up really just adding to the confusion, delusion, and suffering of the world today. So again, I don't mean to end on such a sour note. What is truly amazing to me, that the Buddha's Dhamma, something that an awakened human being taught 2,600 years ago, has been preserved as well as it has, and is still useful and still entirely effective to develop exactly what the Buddha taught, a life of lasting peace and happiness. And that truly is remarkable. It truly is the jewel of human existence. So I want to thank you for joining me today. I see we have a few followers online. And I will be back next Wednesday. Peace.